Citizenship Education. The World We Live In. 2. In Chapter 1, we looked into the interconnected and interdependent world. And in Chapter 2, we would like to critically examine the world and reflect on the impact of globalization on the lives of people. Before we start, take a moment to think, is our world becoming a better place for all? As citizens of the world, we have the right and responsibility to understand the world we live in. While there are growing opportunities for us to make our world a better place, the challenges we face are becoming more complex and paradoxical. Let's take a look at the complexities and contradictions we are facing in today's globalized world. Let's talk about the economic aspect first. With the Millennium Development Goals in 2000, the global community has put much effort to eradicate extreme poverty. And for the past 17 years, we have seen profound achievements in reducing global poverty rates. The number of people living in extreme poverty, living on less than $1.25 per day, has dropped by half. However, along with the progress in economic development worldwide, inequality has also tremendously increased. Let's watch a short video clip on global wealth inequality.
People are talking a lot about inequality these days, about the fact that the richest 1% have so much more than everybody else. But most of the focus seems to be on the United States, and it strikes me that the same story needs to be told about global inequality too. So I did some research, and this is what I found from reliable sources like the UN. It turns out that while the US is totally out of whack, things are actually way worse for the planet as a whole. Let's start with this graph. A perfectly even distribution of wealth among all living people, with everyone divided into 5 equal groups. Now, let's show how much each group actually has. Shocking, right? 80% of the world's people barely have any wealth. It's hard to even see them on the chart. Meanwhile, the richest 2%, they have more wealth than half of the rest of the world. Let's look at this chart another way. Let's take the whole world's population, all 7 billion of us, and reduce it to just a representative 100 individuals. Here they are, poorest people on the left, richest people on the right. Now let's show how the world's total wealth, roughly $223 trillion, is distributed. The vast majority have practically nothing. Nothing with which to educate their children, nothing with which to pay for basic medicines. While the richest 1%, they've accumulated 43% of our world's wealth. The bottom 80%, meanwhile, that's 8 out of every 10 people, have just 6% between them. But even this doesn't really show how extreme things have become. The richest 300 people on Earth have the same wealth as the poorest 3 billion. So the number of people it takes to fill a mid-sized commercial aircraft have more wealth than the populations of India, China, the US, and Brazil combined. We can also see this difference geographically, with a huge and growing gap between a few rich places versus the majority of the world. For most of history, things were much more equal. 200 years ago, rich countries were only 3 times richer than poor countries. By the end of colonialism in the 1960s, they were 35 times richer. Today, they're about 80 times richer. Rich countries try to compensate for this by giving aid to poor countries, about $130 billion each year. That's a lot of money. So then why does the wealth gap keep getting bigger? One reason I found is that large corporations are taking more than $900 billion out of poor countries each year through a form of tax avoidance called trade mispricing. On top of this, each year poor countries are paying about $600 billion in debt service to rich countries on loans that have already been paid off many times over. And then there's the money that poor countries lose from trade rules imposed by rich countries to get access to more resources and cheaper labor. Economists from the University of Massachusetts calculate that this costs poor countries about $500 billion a year. Altogether, that's more than $2 trillion that flows from some of the poorest parts of the world to the richest. Every year. Rich governments like to say they're helping poor countries develop. But who's developing who here? This makes me think that there's something wrong with the basic rules of the global economy. It can't be okay that the wealth of our planet is becoming so concentrated in the hands of such a tiny number of people. The only reasonable response, it seems to me, and our only hope, is to change the rules.
Saw in the video, global wealth is not equally distributed with huge gaps between nations, regions, and people. And the wealth gap between the poor and the rich keeps getting bigger and wider. Also, economic growth brings in vulnerabilities, such as rising youth employment and vulnerable employment. Under this condition, many people have inadequate earnings, lack of decent working conditions and security, which threatens the sustainable livelihoods. For instance, in 2012, around 168 million children are involved in child labor worldwide, including 99 million boys and 68 million girls. And half of them, making up to 85 million, are engaged in hazardous work, as the table shows. This shows the number of children involved in child labor around the world: 77.7 million in Asia and the Pacific, 59 million in sub-Saharan Africa, 12.5 million in Latin America and the Caribbean, and 9.2 million children in Middle East and North Africa. And 57 million primary school-aged children are not enrolled in school. Like children, women are often invisible in labor despite the fact that women constitute half of the globally employed. A large number of women are placed in informal labor sector. Even some are found in forced labor, such as garment manufacturing and farming, as well as domestic work. The work in garment industry is often characterized by long hours, low pay, and poor working conditions. And now, let's move on to another aspect: the paradox of increased interconnectedness. As we saw in Chapter 1, advancement of technology has been opening new avenues for the exchange of information and cooperation. Each day, more than 8 million people fly worldwide, and in 2013, 3.1 billion people have traveled via plane. This number is expected to rise to more than 6.4 billion by 2030. Our greater interconnectedness also grows through the contribution of Internet and new digital technologies. The number of worldwide Internet users increased from 16% in 2005 to 47% in 2016, while in the same period in Africa, the number jumped from 2% to 25%. Yet, despite the growing ways of being connected, we can still see an increase in socio-cultural and religious intolerance and conflicts around the world. In 2017, 65.6 million people across the world were forcibly displaced due to persecution, conflict, or human rights violations, and among them, 22.5 million are refugees, while 40.5 million displaced in their own country. You may remember the world's largest country quiz in Chapter 1. We enjoy so much expanded social life through Internet. Yet it is doubtful whether this increased connectivity actually connects people in a peaceful way. Oftentimes, social network services become a space of intolerance and violence, such as cyberbullying and sexual exploitations. In 2016, UNICEF released a report entitled Perils and Possibilities: Growing Up Online, and based on the findings from more than 10,000 18-year-olds in 25 countries, the majority of the respondents think that they are vulnerable to sexual abuse and exploitation online. Now, let's think about our planet. Global population has grown drastically from 2.5 billion in 1950 to 7.6 billion in 2017, and is projected to grow to 11.2 billion in 2100. Along this growth, the demand for natural resources increases as we are experiencing fast industrialization and urbanization, and our unsustainable production and consumption have greatly impacted our environment. Climate change and environmental degradation are outcomes of our unsustainable lifestyles. In 2015, the world experienced the hottest year since 1880. With these challenges, sustainability emerges as a central concern. If we continue to consume as much as we do now, 4 Earths would be needed to sustain us. Let's take one example for our unsustainable lifestyle. Many people in the world widely enjoy the so-called fast fashion brands because those brands provide current clothing styles at an affordable price. But have you ever thought how what we wear impacts the environment? Let's watch a short video clip that shows the environmental impact of a shirt you wear. We can see the environmental consequences a simple t-shirt may have. Not only what you wear, but also take a look at what you eat and drink, what you use, and what you do in your daily life. Is your lifestyle sustainable and responsible? How are you impacting the environment? What aspects can you become more conscious of? Now let's think about progress and the challenges of human rights. We are now living in a world characterized by a younger population with stronger aspirations for human rights more than ever in history. While it is evident that international human rights frameworks have been strengthened over the past several decades, the implementation and protection of rights remains a major challenge. While it is evident that international human rights frameworks have been strengthened over the past several decades, the implementation and protection of rights remains a major challenge. In the past decades, significant progress in promoting human rights has been made. For example, human rights have become central to the global conversation regarding peace, security, and development. Another example is that women's rights are now acknowledged as fundamental human rights. Discrimination and acts of violence against women are at the forefront of the human rights discourse. However, you may have seen this photo, which shook the world. Alan Kurdi, a Syrian boy who faced his tragic death as the boat they were riding capsized. He is one of the millions of people who are fleeing their home countries, searching for a safer place. Like the issue of refugees, we can observe various types of human rights violations all over the world. Therefore, the realization of human rights still remains a challenge to the global community. Till now, we have learned about contradictions and challenges we face in this globalized world. Before we finish Chapter 2, let's think about this. What changes in the world are you most surprised or concerned about, and why? this is the end of Chapter 2. We will meet you again in Chapter 3. Thank you.